So this is what my owl looks like when it's finished. It's got the big eyes out of marbles and all this great texture, and it's just a really cute kit, and it's very fun to do. So I want to show you how to do that. Also, you can do it without the ornament if you want to. You can paint over the drawing here. There's white paint. So you can decide whether to make it a snow scene, Christmas scene, or not. It can just be an owl. So you really can use it for all year, anytime. So we'll go ahead and open the kit. So just go ahead and put it back. Pull the tab. And check out the instructions. Notice there's a little hanger on the back, which is nice. You can just hang it as soon as you're finished with it. So anyway, okay, so these are the instructions, and you're going to be using this picture to follow so that you know, you can see what your strokes are supposed to look like. So some of the things that you need to gather is a cup of water, paper towels, a plate, or something to put your paint on. Maybe you could use a piece of foil if you don't have a plate. Scissors. You want to cover your work area and also cover your clothes. This is acrylic paint, and once it dries, it's permanent in your clothing. So you want to be sure, if you do get something on you, wash it off before it dries. So, okay, so once you get all your materials gathered, we're going to get started. Okay, so we're ready to get started on this little textured owl. I'm going to open the bag. Okay, so here's your brush. You're going to take the cover off of your brush and dip your brush in the water to loosen that sizing. Okay, set that aside. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is start reading the instructions. So the first step, it says find the plaster bag and squirt some plaster onto the paper plate. Put a small amount of the plaster in the eye area, only the part that looks like the flower. So right in here, we're going to put some plaster in here, okay? And you know, we don't really have to put it on the paper plate. We could just squirt a little bit in here. Either way, it'll work. The way I like to do is squeeze the plaster back a little bit and cut the corner. Okay, so we'll try to put it on the plate and see. Okay, all right. So let's put a little bit there. So now I'm gonna dip my finger in it, and I'm going to use it to make like a flower. So I'm going to push with my fingerprint into the area to make it look like a little flower there. So just turn it around. So do that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. If you don't want to use your finger for this part, you probably could use the knife to fill these in. Again, if you have allergies to latex, you don't want to use your finger for this. So you would want to use your brush or use your knife. The knife would work. You just pick it up and just kind of pull the plaster like this, okay? So again, if you have any kind of allergies, I've never had this bother anybody. We've been doing these for 7 years, but I just wanted to say that. So, okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is do step number 2. It says, now find the yellow ochre and touch the paint with your finger, pressing and pull, creating the flower effect. So now we're just basically painting the flower. So we're going to open this, and it looks like it needs to be stirred just a little. So we'll take this. Whenever you see that liquid on the surface, that means that the paint separated a little bit. You could either use the brush or you could use your finger for this. I guess I'll try using the brush. Just go ahead and paint that little flower. Okay. Be sure to put your brush in the water when you're finished, because if you leave your brush sitting down on the table, it dries really fast and you could not be able to use your brush again. Okay, so while this area is still wet, we're going to take the marbles and I'm going to push them into the right there and there, and we're just going to push them a little closer to the center, just like that. Okay, all right. So now it says press them using the paintbrush, the same color. We're going to paint the eyelids. Okay, so we'll go ahead and dry the brush. And with this same color, load the brush. And we're going to start by, it is important that you make sure there's no water in your brush when you're doing this, because you don't want that color to be thin. So make sure you dry your brush all the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a second coat after it dries. So we're going to leave this for a while. And later, when it's good and dry, we're going to come back and do a second coat. And the same with the eyes. So we're going to wash that color out and close the paint. I'm going to open the black. Okay. Oh, looks like the black doesn't need to be stirred. So we'll go ahead and put the black where the eye is, and we're going to make kind of like a half circle. So we're going to start where that line is, make a straight line, and make a half circle underneath to create the pupil. I like a nice big pupil. I think it makes him look more friendly. A small pupil makes him look a little bit scared or not quite as friendly. Okay. Try to make them the same size. All right. Okay, that looks cute. So one thing I like to do also is you can wait for them to dry a little, but you can kind of tilt them around, make him look a little more pouty or funny. Anyway, I think that's cute. Give him a little more expression. Okay, all right. All right, so what we're doing next, we've got that one. Okay, now cut the corner of the bag of glue, and we're going to put a dot of glue where the beak is and where the toes are. All right, so here's the glue. Let's close that lid. You squish the glue back so it doesn't come out when you cut it. Push it back a little. Hopefully you've got a better pair of scissors than that. Okay. All right. So do a little dot of glue where his beak is, and then on the toes. All right. So this is the clay. All right. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the little triangle for the beak. So I would just kind of pinch off a piece like that and make the top of it flat and the bottom of it like a triangle. So kind of like this. See that little triangle? Okay, so that's kind of big. I think maybe I'll squish it in a little. There we go. Okay, so you're going to take that. That's kind of big. Let me make it a little shorter. All right. This is cornstarch clay, and it dries really nice, and you can paint it before it dries. All right, I like that. So on the feet, you're going to split the rest of it in half, and you make a ball first, and then you can take this just between your hands and roll it like this. And you make a long snake. I think I'm going to move this aside and use my tabletop to roll this nice and even. See, if you just roll your hand like that, you can make it even. Okay. All right, so that's what you want. So we're probably just going to use this one instead of the other one. So let's start with this. Okay, so now you can just pinch off little 1/2-inch pieces, about that big. And you can see that they will press right in for each one of the toes. You kind of press it in. There's one. So I'll just keep doing that until I fill up all the toe area. Or I guess claws, they're not really toes. I think this is such a fun kit. I love it. All right. Okay. So that is super cute. Get those little toes squished up in there. All right. So we'll just take the rest of that clay, and you could put it back in the bag and save it and use it for something else later. But as far as this picture is concerned, we're finished with the clay. So you probably want to reseal that bag if you want to save it. All right. All right, so for the next step, we are going to add some plaster to the head and the ears using the knife. It says bounce the plaster around with your finger. Sprinkle a little bit of clear glitter onto the plaster. So we're going to start by putting the plaster right up here. I'm going to finish what's on my plate here so I don't waste it. And then I'm going to cut this bag. Oops, it's already cut. I'm just going to take just a little bit. That's really all you need. You don't need a lot for up at the top. So just going to take that and move it around. Turn this upside down so I can reach it better. And I think I'm going to use my finger to move it around. It's a little easier. Just kind of make a little texture in it. Okay, that's good. Wipe my finger off, and I'm going to look for the clear glitter. So this is the clear, and I'm going to cut the bag. And just sprinkle a little bit of the glitter. I think we're going to be using the rest of the glitter later, so don't use it all. Okay, all right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start filling in the wings using the plaster. So the rest of the plaster is going to go on the wings. So if you want, you could do both of the wings. Split the rest of the plaster between the two. All right. Take the knife and just start filling it in. Okay. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the bronze color, and we're going to paint the wings with the bronze. So you don't have to worry too much about the way the plaster is. I guess you can kind of smooth it out just a little. Let's see here. Kind of just pull it up like this. We're going to actually make the texture after we paint it, but it might be good to have it a little more smooth. There we go. Just pull the wings toward the top of the picture. All right, so while that's still wet, load your brush with color, and when you paint these, you stay on the surface of the plaster. You don't dig deep down into the plaster. So you press lightly. Paint the whole wing with that bronze color. Okay, all right, so let's close this back up. We do need to use that bronze again, so all right, so I'm going to wipe off my knife, and I'm going to create these wings by using the edge of the knife. So you kind of just take and pull. Just pull that color straight up like that. So what you're doing is you're leaving the top of the wing just the way it was. So you don't do the top of the wing. Okay, so now you're going to use the knife. I'm going to make shorter strokes at the top, so little bitty ones like this. You can wipe it off as you go. Alright, so once you're finished with that, I have on there that you can paint black into the top of the wing. We'll do that. You can also skip that black and then just put your sequins straight on. It looks good both ways. I used my finger, but I think I'll go ahead and just use the brush. Just kind of paint the center of each of the little feathers you just made. And then you get these sequins. You could probably pour some of them onto your plate and just sprinkle a few of those sequins into the top of the wing. These are black sequins. I think they look really cool. Okay. Okay, all right. So the next thing I'm going to do is paint the tummy, the bronze. This is a fairly see-through color, so that's okay because this is just a base coat. You don't have to worry too much. This is all going to be covered, so you won't be able to see your strokes. All right, so now you wash your brush, and we're going to use some white paint. And you're going to load your brush. This part is kind of, you really want to watch how this works. Okay, so you're creating these nice big feathers on the tummy. And I want to show you what that looks like. You just take and you press your brush down, making a nice big, almost like just making a dot. And you make them in rows. The more, if you load a lot of paint on your brush, it's easier to do that. So lots of paint on your brush, and you just press and pull it. Now on this row, I'm going to do every other one. Notice how I'm just leaving a little bit of space in between it so that you can see the individual feathers. I think we'll go ahead and do the tail. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is the branch. So I'm going to open my brown and stir that up a little bit. Oop, make sure you got all the color out of your brush. I still had a little white in there. Okay, so you touch your brown and then touch your water. And what that's going to do is it thins your color out a little bit. So as you pull this branch across, you can touch your water again, and what it does is it thins that color out. It makes it look a little bit more like wood. When you reload it, then just touch the water again and keep the color thin. Alright, so that kind of looks like wood. Alright. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is paint the whole background with mint green. You want to mix your color a little bit so that there's not watery. And knock off a little bit of glitter in the background. Make sure there's no glitter. And at this point, you could cover a little bit of the black outline. That's going to make him look a little more realistic. And you can touch your water a little bit as you go, just to slightly thin out the color if you want. Makes it flow a little smoother. So as you can see, I finished the background. I added a little water to the green as I went, just to make it a little faster. We're going to do a little more shading in the background, so that's okay if it looks a little bit streaky. We're going to do a second application. So I forgot this little spot right here. The top one gets green also. Now we're going to do this little spot right here in bronze. Make the little point on your brush. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do the pine needles. So you just look at your print and choose one of these areas. And it says choose a pine needle area, repaint with the background color, the mint green. While it's still wet, paint leaf green pine needles. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's the mint green. What we're going to do is repaint that background right where the pine needles go. The purpose for this is so that you're working wet in wet, so that your background is wet. Alright, so then you open the leaf green. Just do one area at a time. Stir the leaf green a bit. Okay, and you're going to paint from one spot. Let's make a dot right there, okay? And we're going to pull to create the pine needles. You notice how my brush stroke always comes from the same dot. It makes kind of a fan. We can go up over the branch a little bit too. Okay, so, alright, so the next thing you're going to do is you've painted the leaf green pine needles. Now, making sure your leaf green needles are still wet, you load your brush with hunter green. Alright, you drop a dot of the pine needles touching the edge of the branch. So we're going to make a little hunter green up at the top. Stir it a bit. So it goes right there. So we're going to just kind of pull that down a little. And now it says now using the handle you pull through and scratch to make your pine needles. So what you're doing is you're touching that dark green and you're pulling it through like this. Wipe it off. Alright, that works great. Alright, so now you do the same thing with your other areas. Working wet and wet. Don't forget to do your background color first. So you get it nice and wet with that mint green. Wipe that color off, go to your leaf green, make your pine needles. Let's go over the branch a little bit. Now we're going to the hunter green. going to make a dot right here and then pull up out of that dot. Wipe it off and then use the stick end. Pull your pine needles through. All right, so we're going to do one more here. Alright, now I'm going to do a second coat of red. Close those colors for the green. And make sure your brush is clean and dry. Go ahead and do a second coat of red. You want to be sure that the first coat of red is dry, or mostly dry, before you try to do a second coat. Alright, so while that's still wet, we're going to do a little bronze shading on the outside of that. Touch your bronze, fill your brush, and you're going to paint on the outer edge and this edge with bronze. That probably will work a little bit better if it's a little more dry. It's pretty wet. Do a second coat of bronze on your hanger. This also needs to be a little more dry. So probably let your ornament dry a little bit before you do the shading around the edge. It also gets some white. Okay. Well, we're going to paint the feet and the beak, the yellow ochre. I want to make this a little bit lighter at the top of the picture, so I'm going to take some more mint green and add that second coat to the top. So while that's still wet, we're going to take a little off-white and give it a kind of a snowy look. It's important to work while it's still wet, so I'm working quickly so that that second coat is still wet. So I'm taking my off-white and just going to blend a little of that lighter color in. So because the background is wet, it's making a real nice, soft, lighter color. It doesn't blend as well once it dries. Notice how I'm leaving a little bit of the mint green show through. This is just to give it kind of a snowy background look. So you're not painting it everywhere, you're just kind of painting little broken dots. Okay. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it snow. This is really fun to do. You take your end and stick end of your brush and we're just going to make some little white playful dots in the background. And we're just going to let it snow. How fun is that? While you're doing this, you want to slow down and put a couple of dots in the eye. One there. Alright, that is cute. Okay. Make a few snowflakes on the branches. Alright, then the last step, well, we have one more step here, so but while we have the white, we're going to take and load the brush like this, and you lay the color on the branch. Watch this. You just kind of roll it and lay it on there. Big blob of white, and it makes it look like a big blob of snow. So while that's wet, you get your glitter bag again. You take your glitter, and you just sprinkle that glitter on into the snow. Might be good, you could add a little bit of that to your pine needles if you want to. They're still wet. Or wherever you want it. That might be pretty on the snow too. So, okay. Now, there's one last thing, and that is there's a little bit of black on the toes. And I believe that's the last thing. So, take the toes and you paint. You leave the, let's see. Nope, did that wrong. You want the claws to be black, so the tip of the claw is black. Alright, and I think that is it. Looks awesome. I thought I'd show you a few things that these are optional steps. Once you finish this picture, this looks just fine to be finished right here. But for those of you that are a little more advanced, if you want to spend a little more time on it, there are some things that would be really nice. So I'm going to make an eye line. Show you what that looks like. So I've got a little bit of black paint on the tip of the brush. You can make an eye line. And I think that looks nice. I've also had some people in the past do eyelashes. So if this is a girl, you could just add a few eyelashes. That's kind of cute. Makes it not as realistic looking, but it's fun. Alright, so that would be one thing. Then another thing you could do is you could add a little more black around the eyes if you maybe add a little water to your brush. If you wanted to, you know, just make it look a little better, just kind of fill that black in a little. Okay, so if you wanted to add more of the black around the eyes, you could. What I'm going to do right now is I've got some water in the brush, so the black is kind of thin, which is good for this. And I'll make a little shadow by the wing. You see how that's real see-through? So you don't want heavy black on your brush. You just touch your black and make sure you've got a little bit of water in your brush. And if you make this little shadow next to the wing, it gives it a nice look. If you get too much, just touch your water, kind of pull it out a little. Wipe it back with your paper towel and just kind of soften that out with no paint on your brush. Just pull it. And I think I like that. I'm going to make this other one a little bit darker. Shadows always add just a little bit of realism to the picture. So I would recommend, if you're going to do the eyelashes, don't do the shadow, because that makes it look, the shadow makes it look more realistic. But I wanted to show you the eyelashes just to kind of give you some choices. But I'm going to go ahead and paint over mine. Because I really like the shadow. Whenever you have to do a second coat on something, make sure that you let the first coat dry first. So I will probably let these eyes dry and then do a second coat to cover the eyelashes. I guess the other thing I would do maybe is do a little better shading on the ornament. That probably would look good. So I'm gonna do another coat of red and get a really nice solid coat on there. I'll show you how to really make this look round and shiny, like it's a real Christmas bulb. All right. Try, let's use some brown. So this is still wet. I'm going to pull the brown around. See how dark that is? So you just pull it around the edge. Now you take your brush and wash it off, dry it, get all the water out. So what we're going to do is we're going to just soften the edge where the dark touches the red. And so you just kind of take that line and start blending it. Once you get color on your brush, wipe it off. So you're just using your dry brush to blend those two colors together. Keep dry, keep wiping off your brush. Notice how you're leaving the dark edge on there. That makes it look more 3D. Do this side, wipe it off. Let me kind of wash some of that brown off. It starts to get stuck in there, so. Okay, see how much more realistic that looks now? So, could do a little bit of white to define maybe add like a little white. It looks kind of like a little shine up onto the thing that hooks it on, whatever that's called. And then I might just do a little white dot down here. I like that. And you could do, while this is wet, you could do another little reflection up here. Dry out your brush, soften the white part out a little. You could take a little of that red and soften this white out a little, just kind of. Right, so I think that looks a lot more realistic, and I like that. You could add a little more bronze up onto the hanger, maybe. All right, that looks good. When I did the toes, on the original, I had actually painted them black first. And again, this is not necessary to do. I'm just showing you a few things that might make it look a little more realistic. So. I painted them black first. And after that dried, then I put the gold on. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to do another coat of gold on the eyes. also have some yellow here. This yellow could be used for a yellow ornament also. If you didn't want your ornament red, you could do a yellow ornament. And you always have the white. You know, if you wanted to cover over it and do it in yellow or do something different, you just base coat it white first. But I'm going to do the beak yellow. Maybe let a little of that gold show through. So the last thing I'm going to do is add some yellow ochre to the toes. Once that black dries, just leave the toenail black and add your yellow ochre up to the top.